Hello everyone, Silent here with today's Mass Effect video concerning the Uncharted Worlds side quests. You know, I actually did have quite a bit to say about these, so I'm just gonna make one big video about it and then I'm gonna be done with it for good. But I'm just gonna cover like the process of doing them, some of the better moments, some of the better side quests, some of the, not so good moments, and then I'm gonna do a review type thing and explain my thoughts and go over the good and the bad. So let me brief you on the experience of going through the Uncharted World quest of how I went through them. Okay, you go to a system and if it has an asteroid belt thing, you scan for a little blinky thing, and that goes towards a counter for a fetch quest. Yes, there are multiple fetch quests you have to do if you want the full experience, full playthrough thing. If not, if you're bored by stupid ass Easter egg hunt type bullshit, then don't do it. But I guess the incentive is extra experience or extra money or whatever. They throw that little incentive in there just so it's like, oh, is it worth it? Maybe, I don't know. Determine it for yourself, I guess. But yeah, you go around and you look at all the planets, you survey them, it goes towards your fetch quest counter, and then you touch down at the planet you're supposed to land on for a certain mission. You land in your Mako, which is your heavily armored vehicle with turrets and fucking magic missiles and little thrusters to propel it upwards to avoid enemy attacks. Only problem, it doesn't control very well. It just kind of does whatever it wants to, does flips whenever you hit certain ridges, and I don't know, it's a crazy machine. Leads to some pretty grueling moments and kind of frustrating to control at times. You just basically drive around, you set waypoints to debris or what have you, and look around for fetch quest items, and if there's any hidden ones, little hidden icons in the radar, you go over to those. That also adds to your fetch quest counter. Eventually you go to like an enemy base or certain beacon or something like that. Some sort of mission or firefight where you can get some enjoyment or action out of this, where you have a 5-minute firefight and then you're pretty much done. That's pretty much the experience in a nutshell. Sometimes you need to heal your Mako because it gets damaged from all the gunfire. So what you gotta do, or at least what I did, is there's a bunch of containers and other places where you can get these great items, and then you see how well they stack up against what you have right now. If it's better, unequip what you have now, equip the best weapon, best upgrades you can get, and I convert the rest to Omnigel, so if I get in trouble in the Mako, I find cover or someplace to hide and then heal it, use my Omnigel for that. Or if you fuck up one of the decryption or hacking things, you can use Omnigel on that as well. I hate Frogger, so I fuck up at it quite a bit, so sometimes I need Omnigel to bail me out here and there. Most of it can be summed up by you partake in a stupid ass Easter egg hunt type extravaganza, which isn't very fun, but it is kind of rewarding. So decide whether you want to do it or not. If you want a badass shepherd that destroys people in no time at all, might be what you're gonna have to do. Just turn on some awesome music or something while you're driving around in the Mako. There are actually 4 quests relating to characters' backstories, one of which is Shepherd. Depending on the backstory you picked within the first part of the game, the introduction, based on what I picked, I ended up at a science facility where I was introduced to Corporal Toombs, one of the guys that was supposedly killed back on Akuz by a Thresher Maw, and he was holding a scientist at gunpoint. Now this scientist was part of an organization called Cerberus, and you find out a lot about them. They do these brutal experiments. They just fuck with other races and see what produces results, strengthens each race or or, you know, like, if I do this crazy injection type thing, what happens to the person? You know, they saw that Toombs survived, so they basically used him as a guinea pig and did a whole bunch of experiments on him, treated him like shit, and just saw what they could do with him. And actually, he even reveals that Cerberus triggered the Thresher Maw, like they were involved in the Thresher Maw incident somehow, and they forced his unit to be killed. And you know, it's pretty crazy stuff. It's nice that they actually did a quest relating to Shepard's backstory, but they also have other quests relating to other characters' backstories, like I mentioned. The first official Uncharted Worlds side quest I did was one involving a Turian named Tonactus. If you bring Rex along, he has some commentary going on. Tonactus stole some family armor that was passed through Rex's ancestors, and we go back to reclaim it. It's probably not the ideal first Uncharted World side quest you should do, because it can kick your ass if you're not careful, if you just kind of rush in there like some people do. But yeah, you get the armor back, and you give it to Rex, and he's like, oh, it's a piece of shit, but you know what, it's mine, so peace, bitches. Next up is Tally. There are a bunch of Geth outposts that you have to take down. We run into an opportunity in which we can acquire more data on the Geth, and if you go and talk to Tally, she asks for a copy of that because she feels it would help for her pilgrimage for the fleet. If you don't already know, she needs to present a gift to the fleet that is of some value, and more information on the enemy they're fighting would be pretty crucial to have, you'd think. So, you know, me being the awesome guy I am, and the fact that I love Tally, I gave her the Geth info. Last but definitely not least is my main man, Garrus Vicarian. If you talk to him a couple times, we eventually get to discussing past CSEC work he was involved with, because before he came with us, he was on CSEC, and he was investigating a Solarian geneticist named Dr. Salion. How this came about was they noticed a significant increase in organs being sold on the black market, so they went to investigate, and you know, they didn't find anything at his lab. Like he said, they didn't even find a Krogan testicle.
Not one Krogan testicle.
So they eventually discovered through interrogations that Dr. Salion was actually growing organs inside of his workers. He was cloning their organs, and then he would just rip them out, make a bunch of incisions, rip out the organs. If it was good, they got a chunk of that money. And if it was bad, they just left it in there. He just left it in there, and you know, it was like, hey, got an extra wilted liver there, deal with it, bitch. And eventually there was, you know, some sort of confrontation between CSEC and Salion. Salion acquired a bunch of hostages, which he was like, alright, don't do anything or else I'll kill these bitches. Garrus tried to warn CSEC that the hostages were probably already dead and just gun it down anyways, because at least you can catch Salion. But they didn't listen, they let him get away. So eventually we get the coordinates to go to Salion's ship, and we finally meet up with Dr. Salion, aka Dr. Hart. And he definitely puts up the best fight ever out of any enemy. Best resistance I've ever seen. I mean, check this shit out. Truly a man willing to fight to the death, even if it means taking one bullet. Okay, moving on. Next up, not so much, you know, favorite quests as they are just like favorite moments, I suppose. One of which was the chapter or war against the Rachni. One particular gun battle was really fun. You met up with a bunch of Marines that were fighting them, and you could hook up the Mako to power these gigantic turrets. And basically you, the Marines, and the turrets all turned the Rachni into a shooting gallery. A lot of fun. We went to the cave, with Rachni all over the fucking place. There's a bunch of holes in the ground where they pop up and spawn, and that was kind of funny because it led to some pretty traumatic moments where I was trying to get away from one group of Rachni and I ran into another and another, and big mess. Same thing happened on a ship with a bunch of husks. It just spawned a bunch of clusters of them, and they'd all use their electric attacks within a short radius, and it was a close quarters map, so you get your shit pushed pretty bad. So if you recall, I mentioned that there were Thresher Maws on Aku's, and they actually do include some Thresher Maws in certain Uncharted Worlds. So I decided to go through a segment which I like to call Silent Undergoes the rite of passage, which you will find out what that means in the second game. Basically, I was like, hey, this armored vehicle with a bunch of guns and shit, I don't need that. I'm gonna go out on my feet and I'm gonna take this motherfucker down with a pistol. And that's exactly what I did. So one fight that I didn't really particularly like, but I should probably reference, was a battle on the moon. Actually, you can go to the Sol system, travel to the moon, ride around, and you actually get into a fight with a gigantic Geth VI thing, go to a bunch of bunkers, shoot a bunch of, robots and systems and whatnot. Just thought I'd reference that because it is brought up again later on. So now to one of the silliest quests I have ever went through in any video game. Okay, let me set it up like this. There's a crashed probe, and, there's certain modules that should be there, so when we drove up to it, it's like, oh, there's a module missing. And this big box pops up on the screen. It says it appears to have been taken by a monkey-like creature. So you know what you have to do, Commander Jackass? You gotta go around this planet searching monkey colonies. Yeah. You ultimately find the monkey that took the module, and Geth come out of nowhere. Like a bunch of Geth, like a huge army of Geth, try and take you out. I guess they don't approve of Shepard looking at monkey butts all day. I don't know. I probably wouldn't either, so I can't really blame him for wanting to kick my ass. Okay, so now for my assessment and I guess review of the Uncharted Worlds quests. Let me first say that the Uncharted Worlds quest did have potential. They'd had potential to be great, but they fell short in a number of ways. Personally, what I would change is the control for the Mako. Make it a little better so it's less painful to control, because it kind of does whatever it wants at times. And that goes into the main story too. It's not just a side quest. You drive around the Mako in the main story as well, and in some of the levels like Novaria, Pharos, and Therum, Ilos, Vermeer, all of them, pretty much. The fetch quest thing was kind of annoying. If the map was condensed, so everything was more, in close proximity of each other, it would have been less stressful and painful to go through. Or just, take it out and have us scavenge through containers and stuff for experience or money or whatever. Or, add more firefights in there so we can get more experience and such out of those, kind of distribute it like that. And I guess the other main thing I'd have to say is, like, I get it's Uncharted Worlds, there's not a whole lot of life going on in here and what have you, but I just feel like there should be more to look at, more visual stimulation for the player, just better atmospheres, because, I really love the exploration in Mass Effect and in Mass Effect 2. They had some great environments, like amazing environments. Environments with a lot of intricacies, a lot of, NPCs with funny lines and Easter eggs and little things in the background, what have you, and music that complements the atmosphere perfectly. I feel like they could have focused more on the Uncharted Worlds and cut down quantity in favor of quality. They could have had more going on in these Uncharted Worlds and more to explore, just for a more, full experience. I felt that would have been pretty cool. I did love the backstory related side quests that gave you more information on the characters. I think that's how it should be. You got random Joe Schmo over here, like, I don't even know who this guy is. Why do I give a shit about him? Why should I?
Is that a bad joke? I've killed worse than you on my way to real problems.
But yeah, I did like those quests that give you insight as to, more about the characters who are in your crew. So in summary, depending on how you want to play, okay? If you want a full playthrough with a bunch of money and a bunch of experience, I would say go for it. If you don't mind going through fetch quests and, driving segments which bore you to tears. I found that it did help a lot to go through all that in favor of growing my Shepard and making him a one-man army and just shit-kicking the enemy. It was a lot of fun doing that. I got a little loot, a lot of great items. That's another good thing. Other than that, it's kind of boring. I didn't really like it all that much. It could have been good. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. It's a shame. Could have been so much more, but guess that's how it is. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Silent signing out.
Shepard, over there. It's Admiral Kahoku.